What if the woman who could save a man's broken heart was the same stranger he found half dead on a lonely trail? The merciless Texas sun burned across the wide-open land, turning the prairie into waves of trembling heat. Red dust swirled along the trail like small ghosts drifting over the ground. It was late afternoon when Jacob Callahan spotted something unusual in the distance. A dark shape lay in the middle of the road, still and silent. Jacob slowed his big sorrel gelding, Rex, narrowing his steel gray eyes. Jacob was 32, a man shaped by hard work and hard loss. The Double C Ranch belonged to him, thousands of acres stretching toward the Rio Grande. Cattle carrying his brand grazed across land bigger than some towns. Folks called him a rich cowboy, but money had never softened him. He lived careful, guarded, always ready for trouble. The frontier had a way of punishing men who let their guard down. He touched his spurs to Rex and rode closer. When the form on the ground took shape, Jacob's stomach tightened. A horse lay on its side, ribs shaking with weak breaths, and beside it, a young woman in a torn blue calico dress was sprawled across the dust. Jacob swung down fast, one hand near the colt, 45 at his hip. Years on the frontier taught him that danger often hid behind helpless sights. But when he knelt beside her, caution gave way to something else, something he had not felt in a long time. The girl was young, maybe 20 or 21. Her dark hair had fallen from its neat bun and lay scattered across the dirt. Her skin looked too pale in the harsh sun. Her dress, a store-bought Eastern kind, was ripped at the skirt. She did not look like a frontier woman at all. Jacob touched her wrist, searching for a pulse. It was faint but steady. She was alive. The wounded horse beside her gave a low, painful whinny. Jacob saw the problem, a deep cut along its foreleg. The poor animal had run itself nearly to death. He knew what mercy he would have to give it soon. But first, the girl. As he lifted her carefully into his arms, she stirred. Her eyelashes fluttered. Then, slowly, her eyes opened. Bright green, clear as spring grass. "Please," her voice was barely a whisper, "please help." "You're safe," Jacob said, even though he wasn't sure he believed it. "Save your strength." She clutched weakly at his shirt. "My family. I have to find them." "Where are they?" "Where's your wagon?" Tears filled her eyes, cutting clean tracks through the dust on her cheeks. "Gone. Bandits dressed like Indians. They killed everyone." Jacob's jaw tightened. He'd heard rumors of outlaws wearing feathers and paint to hide their tracks, but he had never expected them this close to his land. The girl went limp again, slipping back into unconsciousness. Jacob lifted her onto Rex and swung up behind her, holding her steady with one strong arm. The main ranch was too far. She needed shelter fast, water, shade, safety. The closest place was his line cabin, 10 miles north. As they rode, Jacob studied the fragile stranger leaning against him. Soft hands, clean nails. Her dress was made of expensive fabric. She came from a world far from dust and danger. What was she doing out here? She moaned softly, her head falling against his shoulder. Jacob felt something stir inside him, something he thought he'd buried forever. A protective pull that tightened his chest. Margaret. His wife. Gone 3 years now. Lost in childbirth along with their son. After that day, Jacob had sealed off his heart. Better to live cold than to live broken. But the trembling woman in his arms, she cracked something open. The line cabin appeared as the sun dipped behind the hills. A small, sturdy log building Jacob had built with his own hands years before. He carried her inside and set her gently on the narrow bed, then fetched water from the barrel outside. When he held the cup to her lips, she drank desperately, coughing in between breaths. "Slow," he warned. "You'll make yourself sick." She blinked up at him. Her eyes looked clearer now. "Thank you. I thought I was going to die out there." "What's your name?" Jacob asked. "Evelyn," she whispered. "Evelyn Rose." She tried to sit up but winced. Jacob eased her back against the pillow. "My family," she said, tears rising again. "I have to bury them. I can't leave them like that." Jacob's face stayed firm. How long ago was the attack? 2, maybe 3 days. 3 days in this heat. He knew the truth, even if she wasn't ready to hear it. Anyone left alive would not have survived this long. "We'll talk about it when you're stronger," he said quietly. Evelyn shook her head weakly. "They're all I have." Jacob didn't answer. Instead, he built a fire and mixed cornmeal with hot water, adding a bit of salt pork. When he set the bowl in her lap, she stared at it as though it were a feast. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. "You don't know me." Jacob kept his voice steady. "Because someone had to." She tried to eat, but her hands trembled. Jacob steadied the bowl for her until she finished half of it. Then exhaustion pulled her back into sleep. He covered her with a blanket and stepped outside to tend to the wounded horse. The shot he fired echoed across the empty land, sharp and lonely. When he returned, Evelyn whined softly in her dreams. Jacob sat on the edge of the bed and brushed her hair back from her face, a gesture he had not made for anyone since Margaret. "You're safe," he murmured. "Safe." The word felt strange in his mouth. The frontier was never safe. But inside this cabin, with his rifle loaded and walls thick, Evelyn Rose was as safe as anyone could be. Jacob settled into the chair by the fire, rifle across his knees. He didn't trust easily, but this girl, this stranger, felt like a piece of fate dropped into his path. Maybe she was trouble. Maybe she was a blessing. He didn't know yet. But he knew one thing. He wasn't letting anything happen to her. Not tonight. The gray light of dawn crept through the cabin window as Evelyn opened her eyes. Her body felt heavy and sore, but her mind was clearer than it had been in days. Jacob sat in the wooden chair by the fire, his rifle across his knees, watching her with a guarded expression. He had not slept. "Morning," he said gruffly. She pushed herself upright with effort. "I'm alive." "Thanks to water, rest, and stubbornness," Jacob replied. "Not me." Quote, Evelyn managed a tired smile. "Thank you, still." Jacob stood and rebuilt the fire, busy with the work of morning chores. "There's a stream out back. You can wash up. Privy's behind the woodpile. Can you walk?" She nodded, though her legs trembled when he helped her stand. She leaned on him without meaning to, her cheek brushing his shoulder. Jacob froze for a heartbeat, then guided her outside. By the time she returned, he had breakfast prepared. Biscuits from his stores, warmed beans, and strong coffee that filled the small cabin with its scent. "Eat," he commanded. She sat carefully, her pride straightening her back. "You're very bossy." He shrugged. "Keeps people alive." She ate slowly at first, then with real hunger. When the plate was empty, Jacob poured her coffee and finally took the seat across from her. "I need to ask you some questions," he said. She braced herself. "About the attack." He nodded. His eyes were sharp but not unkind. "How many wagons?" "4 families," she answered softly. "The Millers, the Johnsons, the Wheelers, and us. 23 people." Quote, "What trail?" "Southern route. Our guide said it was safer." Jacob's jaw tightened. "That guide leads you straight to trouble, paid off to deliver you." Evelyn swallowed hard. "How many attackers?" "About a dozen. They wore feathers, but their leader—" She hesitated. He had blue eyes, and they spoke English when they thought we couldn't hear. "Name?" Jacob pressed. "They called him Sutton." "Jake Sutton." Jacob's hand curled into a fist. He knew that name. Everybody did. A brutal outlaw who preyed on wagon trains, leaving no witnesses behind. "Why'd they leave you alive?" he asked. "They didn't," she whispered. "I was gathering wood. I hid under brush. I heard everything. I couldn't help them." Her voice broke. "I wanted to, but I was too afraid." Jacob stood abruptly, the chair scraping the floor. "You'd be dead if you tried. Fear's not a sin. It's survival." She wiped tears with the back of her hand. "I feel like a coward." "You're alive. There's no shame in that." After a long moment, Jacob said, "I'm going out to see the wagon site. You stay here." Quote, Evelyn shook her head fiercely. "I'm coming." "No," Jacob said firmly. "You'll slow me down." and Sutton's men could still be nearby. "I have to bury them," she cried. "My family deserves that." Jacob's face softened with a pain he rarely let show. "I'll bury them proper, I promise, but you stay here." She wanted to argue, but he guided her to the bed and pointed at the rifle leaning against the wall. "If I don't return by nightfall tomorrow, take Rex and ride south to the ranch. Ask for Tom Martinez. He'll keep you safe." Her voice shook. "Why, Adobe Moon? Why that password?" Jacob hesitated. It was something Margaret used to say. Evelyn lowered her eyes. She did not need to ask who Margaret was. Jacob saddled Rex and left with a final warning. "Bar the door. Don't open it unless you hear the password." When he disappeared over the ridge, silence filled the cabin. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling. Being alone brought back every memory she wished she could bury. Hours passed before she dared get up and explore the small cabin. She saw tools hung with care, a shelf of canned goods, a Bible, and a book of Shakespeare's sonnets. A woman's touch lingered here and there despite the sparseness. Margaret. Evelyn ran a finger across a wooden carving on the table. A small flower, carefully carved, feminine. Jacob had loved deeply once. She wondered if there was room in him for love again, or if she even deserved to be anywhere near his heart. Evening fell slowly. Evelyn fed the fire, boiled water, and kept the rifle within reach. Every howl of a coyote made her jump. When hoofbeats finally came, her heart stopped. A soft voice called from the outside darkness, "Adobe Moon." Her legs nearly gave out from relief. She unbarred the door and opened it to find Jacob standing there, dust-covered, tired, and darker in expression than when he left. "It's done," he said. Evelyn's voice cracked. "They're gone." He nodded. "All of them. I buried them proper." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Thank you." He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The firelight flickered across his face, showing sadness he did not try to hide. "Your brother," he said quietly. He was taken aside. They questioned him. They were looking for something. A chill ran through Evelyn's spine. "What were they looking for?" Jacob asked gently. Evelyn swallowed hard. "My father carried papers. About a mining claim, something he inherited. He said it was worthless, but maybe." Jacob nodded once, understanding at last. Then Sutton won't stop. Before Evelyn could respond, a tremor shook her shoulders. She broke, falling into Jacob's chest, her hands gripping his shirt like she was drowning. Jacob wrapped his arms around her without hesitation, his hold firm and warm. "You're safe," he murmured gently. "I've got you." She buried her face against him, her sobs soft but deep. As she trembled in his arms, something changed in Jacob. He felt his heart shift, the walls he'd built for years shaking under the weight of her pain. She wasn't just a stranger now. She was someone he wanted to protect. She was someone he didn't want to lose. Outside, the night was cold. But inside the cabin, Jacob held Evelyn close. And for the first time in 3 long years, he felt warmth stirring inside his chest, something he thought he'd never feel again. The morning came with a soft hush over the Texas hills. Evelyn woke first. She lay quietly, listening to Jacob's steady breathing from the chair beside the bed. He had stayed up again, watching over her. The fire burned low, filling the cabin with a warm glow. When Jacob finally stirred awake, he blinked hard, like a man dragging himself back from a long night. "You should have taken the bed," Evelyn said softly. "Didn't need it," Jacob replied, rubbing his neck. "You did," she insisted. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Didn't want to sleep while you were shaking in your dreams." Evelyn's breath caught just a little. "Thank you. For everything." Jacob pushed himself up with a careful breath like he carried weight far heavier than dust and memories. "Let's get breakfast." Quote. They worked in quiet rhythm, Jacob making coffee, Evelyn stirring beans over the fire. It felt strange and peaceful, like a fragile world that belonged only to them. But peace never lasted long in the frontier. Rex lifted his head outside and snorted. Then hooves sounded in the distance. Multiple horses, fast. Jacob's body went tense. "Get behind the table," he said quickly, reaching for his rifle. Evelyn obeyed without argument. Seconds later, 3 riders appeared, cowboys from the Double C. Leading them was Tom Martinez, Jacob's trusted foreman. Tom dismounted quickly. "Boss, we've got trouble." "What kind?" Jacob asked, stepping out the door. Tom removed his hat, worry lining his face. "That outlaw, Sutton. He hit the Miller Ranch, burned the place, killed Sam and his boy. Folks are scared. Sheriff wants a posse tomorrow at dawn. Wants you to ride with them." Evelyn felt her heart drop. Sutton was close. Too close. Jacob nodded slowly. "I figured he'd strike again." Tom's eyes shifted to Evelyn at the door. He lowered his voice. "There's more. People in town are talking. Saying a survivor of that wagon train is hiding on your land. Saying Sutton's after her. Folks are nervous." Jacob's jaw locked. "They can talk." Tom leaned closer. "Sutton's offering money for information on the girl." Evelyn's breath caught. Jacob didn't even glance at her. "Tell the sheriff I'll think on riding with the posse." Tom nodded, mounted up, and the riders galloped away. Jacob turned back to Evelyn. She could see the conflict in his eyes like a storm behind steel. "You should go with them," Evelyn said quietly. "They need you." "And leave you alone?" Jacob shook his head. "Not happening." "You can't protect me forever," she argued. "And Sutton won't stop until he gets what he wants." Jacob stepped closer. "What exactly does he want?" Evelyn hesitated. Her heart pounded. Then the truth spilled out. "My father," he hid papers. "A mining claim. Not worthless like he said. There were maps, surveys, proof it was rich land. He sewed it into my corset. I've been carrying it the whole time." Jacob stiffened. "And you didn't tell me?" Quote, "I didn't know if I could trust anyone," she whispered, "not after what happened." He breathed slowly, controlling whatever stirred inside him, hurt, worry, maybe even protectiveness. "Do you trust me now?" he asked softly. Evelyn lifted her chin. "With my life." Jacob held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. "Good, because Sutton will come. And we're going to be ready." The attack came faster than either expected. Jacob and Evelyn were riding the eastern boundary, checking fence lines, when Rex suddenly reared. Bullets cracked through the air. Dirt exploded by their horses' hooves. "Ride!" Jacob shouted, grabbing Evelyn's reins. They raced across the open prairie, bullets whizzing past them. Jacob counted shots behind them. 4, maybe 5 men. "Hold on!" he yelled as they reached a line of rocks. Just as they ducked behind cover, Evelyn's horse buckled with a cry. The poor animal collapsed. Evelyn scrambled free, breath shaking, and Jacob hauled her onto Rex. Gunfire rained down on the rocks. Jacob pulled her tight against him. "You hit?" he demanded, checking her quickly. "No," she panted. "Jacob, that was Sutton's voice. I heard him." Jacob's eyes hardened. "I know." A sudden silence fell. Then Sutton's voice echoed across the rocks, cool and confident. "Well now," Sutton called. "Jacob Callahan and the pretty little survivor. Hand her over and walk away alive." Jacob shouted back, "Not a chance." Sutton laughed. "You don't even know why I want her. She carries a fortune sewn into her dress. Enough silver to make kings." Evelyn froze. So he knew. "And I know she still has it," Sutton went on. "So hand her over, Callahan, or I'll take her off your dead body." Jacob looked at Evelyn. Her breath shook. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she whispered. "Good. When I say run, you run left into that gulch. There's a cave. Hide there. Don't come out unless it's me." Her eyes widened in fear. "No, I'm not leaving you." He cupped her cheeks gently. "Evelyn, I already lost one woman I cared about. I won't lose another." Her heart cracked open. "You better come back to me, Jacob Callahan." Quote. He kissed her hard, fast and desperate. Then he whispered, "Run!" Jacob rose and fired, drawing all attention toward himself. Evelyn sprinted into the gulch. Bullets chased her, but she reached the cave and pressed herself into the shadows. The world turned into gunfire. Jacob moved like a man born from the land, darting between rocks, firing with deadly aim. He dropped 2 of Sutton's men before a bullet grazed his shoulder, spinning him back. Pain ripped through him, but he kept fighting. Then, hooves thundered. Tom Martinez and 3 cowboys appeared over the ridge, racing in with rifles blazing. Sutton cursed. "This isn't over, Callahan." He fired one last shot and disappeared into the broken country with the remainder of his men. Jacob slumped behind a rock, breathing hard, blood running down his arm. "Boss!" Tom ran to him. "You hit bad?" Quote. "Just a scratch," Jacob muttered. "Evelyn?" She ran from the cave before Tom could answer. She dropped to her knees beside Jacob, her hands trembling as she touched his wounded shoulder. "You idiot," she whispered, tears falling. "You brave, stupid man. Don't ever scare me like that again." Jacob managed a weak smile. "Yes, ma'am." She helped him stand, her arm around his waist. Tom glanced at them, then grinned. "Well, now, looks like the boss finally found something worth fighting for." Jacob didn't argue. He looked at Evelyn, dusty, shaking, her green eyes full of fear and love, and he knew Tom was right. They rode back to the ranch together, Jacob leaning on Evelyn as much as on the saddle. The fight wasn't over. Sutton would return. Danger would follow. But Jacob no longer faced it alone. Evelyn Rose had become more than a burden, more than a survivor. She was the woman he'd choose again and again. And the frontier would have to go through him before it ever touched her.